Yeah, in this session, we will primarily look at one single firm. Like initially, we started with understanding the demand and supply, the concepts involving the demand and supply, and then the consumer surplus, producer surplus, elasticity. These are things from a customer standpoint and a seller standpoint. Now, when I look at one single firm versus the market, there are two chapters. One is a single firm. How do I look at the demand and supply from a firm standpoint versus the entire market standpoint? These are the two important chapters that we are going to deal with. So, when we are looking at the firm, in economics, we have to discuss about two types of profits. When we talk about FRA or when we talk about the finance side, we always talk about profit means an accounting profit, which is net income, profit after tax. But when we talk about, which is nothing but total revenues minus the total expenses. That is what we call as a profit in our FRAs and other subjects also. But when it comes to economics, we use a word called economic profit, which is nothing but whatever the accounting profit you have got minus the opportunity costs. Opportunity costs, or probably we call them as implicit costs. A better way to explain it is, let's say, okay, you have we have done a business. Our revenues, total revenues, we got some $1,000. The expenses that are really incurred, let's say they are some $600. So as per accounting, 400 is our profit. That 400 we call as accounting profit. Now, when I bring in the economic aspect, okay, we have done a business for one full year, right? And got some 400 as a profit, or probably 40% as the profit. Out of 1,000, 600 we have are our costs, so 40% is our is our accounting profit. Now, if it is the case like, okay, if I had worked elsewhere instead of running this business, if I had worked elsewhere, I could have got 300 rupees as a salary, 300 bucks as a salary. Then that is what is my opportunity cost, because I have foregone that particular salary and I have run this business. So my accounting profit, though it is 400, my economic profit is only 100, which is nothing but accounting profit minus the opportunity cost. Right? So that's where we say, whenever we define the economic profit, apart from the accounting or explicit costs, we also deal with implicit costs. Implicit cost generally is like an opportunity cost, right? Whatever is the opportunity cost. See, am I getting more than the opportunity cost? Let's say I'm running this business, I got a profit of 25 lakhs. But if I work in a job, let's say I will get 30 lakhs, which means I'm actually at a loss by running this business. Though accounting wise, I'm at a profit of a 25 lakhs, but looking at my potential, I could have got 30 lakhs when I am doing something else. That is what is my opportunity cost there. I have foregone that 30 lakhs by running this business. So my economic profit there is minus 5 lakhs. Means I am at an economic loss. Though accounting wise there is a profit, but from an economic profit standpoint, it's a loss for me. That's the important difference between the two. So whenever we talk about the economic profit, we use this definition. Only up to here it is accounting profit minus the implicit cost, which is generally the opportunity cost. So if at all the economic profit is positive, then only it will increase the value of the firm or increase the value of the equity. Because yes, as per cost of equity, let's say it has to generate some 10%. The required rate of return is 10%. Only if it generates 10% profit, there is no increase in the value of the firm. If it generates 15% profit, means exceeding the expectations, that would result in increase in the total value. And on the other side, if it generates only 8%, it has decreased the expectation, means economic profit is negative, so it will decrease the value of the firm. The reason why I am stressing on this concept is, in a lot of cases in this chapter and the next few chapters, we would be using the word saying the economic profit is zero. Right? In a perfect competitive, I am making one statement, in a perfect competitive market, the economic profits are zero. It doesn't mean profit is zero. Right? You will get some normal profit, you will get some accounting profit, but that accounting profit, if I remove the implicit opportunity cost, if I subtract the opportunity cost from it, it becomes zero. Means my accounting profit is same as my opportunity cost. I cannot get anything more than my opportunity cost when my economic profit is zero. This relationship you have to get a very good clarity on. So that is what is called as my normal profit. The accounting profit where the economic profit is equal to zero is what we call as normal profit. So here in economics we use the words called normal profit and supernormal profit. Normal profit means where the economic profit is zero. Means accounting profit is equal to implicit costs. Implicit opportunity costs.
Anything above the implicit cost is supernormal.
Is the supernormal. So what we'll sometimes say is it's not possible to make supernormal profits in a perfect competitive market. Everyone will make only normal profits. Means yes, everyone will get some 10% profit.
Same
But
opportunity.
it's same as the opportunity cost. Right? Probably in some cases that opportunity cost will even go as a risk-free rate of return. So I cannot make anything more than the risk-free rate of return. So I will get some 8%, 10%, but nothing more than that. Right? So normal profit. So whenever we are using the word as economic profit is zero, it doesn't mean that the profit is zero. Right? Profit is equal to the normal profit, where accounting profit is equal to the implicit opportunity cost. Here we define two words: economic rent. Economic rent is nothing but economic profit, wherein we find the difference between the earnings, the actual profit, and the opportunity cost. That is what we call as though economic profit, or sometimes we use the word economic rent. And depending on how the supply curve is, in some cases the economic rent is very very high, and in some cases there is no economic rent also. Just let's understand one. When the supply curve is perfectly elastic, what do we mean by elastic? Percentage change in quantity. The definition of elasticity: percentage change in quantity by percentage change in price. Perfectly elastic means a small change in price impacts the change in quantity drastically. That is what we call as perfectly elastic. Means what is how is this one? A small change in price impacting the quantity quite drastically, which means it's a horizontal supply curve. Quantity changes drastically. If we see this graph,
Almost horizontal.
almost horizontal. A small change in price changes the quantity quite drastically. Right? Almost. So when I say perfectly elastic, it means perfectly horizontal kind of stuff. What do we see there? So there is no way I can get economic profit there. Correct? There is no way I can get economic profit, because if I slightly increase the price a little bit, someone else is gaining my business. There is no way I can make any economic profit in that kind of supply curve. When the supply curve is perfectly horizontal, or when the supply curve is perfectly elastic, nothing is economic rent, everything is opportunity cost, no economic profit. But when the supply curve is perfectly vertical, means whatever may be the price, the quantity is more or less constant, where the elasticity coefficient is 0. The perfectly vertical kind of stuff, everything is economic profit only. There is no opportunity cost in that process. So that is where we have to understand these two things, right? Depending on if the supply curve is perfectly horizontal, like this, right? If the supply curve is perfectly horizontal, whatever we are seeing, there is no economic rent. Means no economic profit. Whatever it is the opportunity cost itself. Entire thing is the opportunity cost itself. Whereas when we are seeing a perfectly inelastic supply curve, whatever it is the economic rent itself or economic profit itself, and there is no opportunity cost. And if the supply curve is anywhere in the middle, some portion of it is the economic profit and some portion of it goes to the opportunity cost. Now here we get into the next concept, wherein we deal with the different definitions of revenues. Different definitions of revenues, like total revenue, average revenue, marginal revenue. These are the different forms of revenues that we look at. Similarly, we'll look at different forms of costs also. Total cost, marginal cost, average cost. Because what we are more interested in seeing is, in different kinds of markets, what could be the relationships between the revenues? How would the graphs for average revenue, marginal revenue, all these things differ in different kinds of markets? So before that, we need to understand these definitions. So when we are talking of total revenue, we know that it is nothing but the total price into the total quantities that are sold. The average price, or the price, if it is a uniformly priced product, price into the quantity sold is what we are calling as the total revenue. And in that case, the average revenue is equal to price. If all of them are sold at the same price, then average revenue also is equal to price. And when we use the word marginal revenue, it means the price, whatever is the revenue you are getting for selling the next product, one extra product, one extra item you are selling, what is the revenue you are getting out of it? So for example, you say, okay, the first product, I am getting a revenue of some 30 bucks. I am selling the second product, the same product, the second piece. Let's say I have got some 29 bucks. The third product I am selling, I got some 28 bucks. Now what we are saying is, this is the marginal revenue for the third product. Probably when I am selling the fourth, let's say it is coming, because the more the number of items I am selling, I may have to sell them at much lower prices. Initially, probably, let's say I am selling a few items, I can sell them at higher prices. There may be some buyers for them. But after a certain number, I may have to sell them at lower prices if I have to sell more and more and more. So this is how a typical marginal revenue graph will look like. Up to a certain quantity, let's say I am producing some shirts, I have to sell some shirts. First couple of shirts I may sell at a cheaper price. But the moment I get some market, I may increase the price, some branding and something I get, I may increase the price and I may sell some more shirts at a higher price. I may get some more revenue, marginal, extra revenue. But after a certain product, after a certain number of quantity, if I have to sell some more, I may have to reduce the price, otherwise I may not get my buyers, because there are so many other people going to so many other sellers. So if at all I have to sell more and more quantity beyond a certain point, I may have to decrease the price. So my decreasing the price is nothing but for the next unit I will get much lesser, for the next unit I will get much more lesser. That is why we are saying a marginal revenue curve is always something like this. And now we are talking about different kinds of markets here. If a market is having a perfect competition, means what is a perfect competition? If I increase the price a little bit, people move away from me. Highly elastic market. We'll discuss about the various market structures in the next chapter. But highly elastic, like probably a no differentiated product is there. Let's say SIM card, right? Or probably a roadside junk food eatable, right? The pani puris on the roadside. Probably all of them give some X number of pieces for 20 bucks. No differentiation in the product, no quality differentiation, blah 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 stuff. Now if one guy increases the price a little bit, he will lose his business very badly. Means uniformity in the product, no specialized thing, assuming that there is no differentiation at all. If that's the case, we call those kind of markets as perfectly homogeneous or perfectly competitive kind of markets. In those markets, we will always see that the demand curve is perfectly horizontal. Why am I saying that? This is the quantity, this is the price. Means if you increase the price a little bit, you are losing your business altogether. Means the demand curve has to be perfectly horizontal itself, which means whatever the number of quantity you are selling, you have to sell it at a fixed price only. Means you are a price taker but not a price setter. You cannot set your own price, especially that non-differentiable kind of products if they are there. Right? Probably you go to a vegetable market where the product is nowhere differentiable. Let's say there are 20 stalls of tomatoes and all tomatoes are non-differentiable. Or probably now that Diwali is coming, you go to 20 stalls of crackers and all 20 are of the same brand and same cracker. The moment one guy increases the price, he will lose his business altogether. Right? So which means he is more of a price taker but not a price setter. Then there is a perfectly competitive kind of a market. Which means here all the items have to be sold at the same price. So your average revenue will always be equal to the marginal revenue is always equal to the price. Right? Marginal revenue is the amount which you will get by selling the next product. You will get the same amount. Average revenue is total revenue by the number of items. That is also the same value. So all of them will be equal to price in case of a perfectly competitive kind of a market. Whereas wherever there is an imperfect competition, what you see is the demand curve will be more or less downward sloped. In a perfect competition, the demand curve, so these are important things. If you remember these aspects, you can answer a lot of questions. In case of perfect competition, for a firm, not for the whole market here, this is I am talking about one single firm, it faces a perfectly horizontal demand curve because it cannot increase the price at all. If it increases, it loses its quantity altogether. Whereas if there is an imperfect competition, you will find something like this, which means some goods I can sell at a higher price, some goods I can reduce the price and I can sell at a much lower price, but it is on a decrease, negatively sloped kind of stuff. Means if I have to sell more and more quantity, I have to reduce the price itself. If my intention is to sell only 5 pieces or 10 pieces, then probably I can keep the price very high. But if my intention is to sell thousands of pieces, I have to reduce the price. Right? So in that case, so let's say this is the typical price. Marginal revenue is always less than the average revenue here. Because marginal revenue, so if I am selling more and more, the excess which I am getting is only this much. Earlier I was getting this much amount when I sold a few. So my marginal revenue falls much heavily compared to my average. Or as an example you see, so one item 30 bucks, two items 29 bucks. So my marginal revenue is 29, but my average revenue is 29.5. So wherever you are seeing a decreasing thing, marginal revenue is always lesser compared to the average revenue. But the typical structure wise, you will see that the marginal revenue will be more like this. Initially, you may sell items at a higher price. First item, second, third, fourth. You can sell at higher prices also because there are people who are ready to buy. But after that, you may have to decrease the price drastically to sell them. Which means your average price will actually follow this kind of a movement. Your average curve is more and more flat compared to the marginal. So let me try to put this in the example. See, initially you started a business, right? So probably we are selling some cloth, some shirts. The first shirt, because people don't know anything about it, we start with some offers or something like that. So the first shirt, let's say I am selling at 200 bucks. Then the second shirt, yeah, probably another 205 bucks because or 200 bucks itself. Now people started understanding that my product is good. So some demand is getting created for my shirts. So initially, yes, 3, 4, 5, I may even sell them at 210, 220, 250, something like that I may keep selling. But after a certain point, right, if I have to sell more and more quantity, I have to decrease the price. Means from the next shirt onwards, I may have to again decrease the price, something like this. If I have to sell more and more and more, I have to give some kind of offers, discounts, all these kind of stuff, and I have to sell them at a reduced price. So what is happening? up to a certain point, my marginal, because this is the time when people don't know about my product. And after that, the moment they come know more about it, and they'll increase, there is an increase in the price. So I'll get, for every new extra product which I am selling, I may get some higher revenues. But after certain point, it's a saturation level. I may have to, if I have to sell still more quantity, I have to decrease the price. So overall, what we are seeing is the marginal revenue curve in general looks more like this. If we try to draw a graph for this, but now try to find out the average of all this. For the first one, 200 is the average. Here also 200, but here somewhere around 205 is the average. The average of these three. I mean, you can do some computation. It's more than 200.
More than 40 years.
Yeah, probably this could be around 210, something like that. So, but after this, yeah, this could be some 220.
After that, decreases.
From here again, it is coming down to, okay, 217, 215, something like that. So when I try to plot that, the typical curve will come more like this. So in general, the marginal revenue curve is this, the average revenue curve is this. And couple of things for us to understand: average revenue is always more and more flatter compared to marginal revenue, because marginal revenue is the price of one single piece, the revenue that is coming from one single piece, whereas average is taking all the goods together and finding out what is the average revenue you are getting. So the impact will not be that heavy. So these are the two things that we have to remember. So marginal revenue, especially when the demand curve is downward sloping, marginal revenue is always lesser than the average revenue, which is always lesser than the price. Now, the other aspect that we have to look at is from the cost dimension. From a company's standpoint, the costs are majorly associated with the various factors of production. The land, labor, capital, all these things, they add up to the cost. So from a cost dimension, we are again discussing about the various types of costs. One is a fixed cost, which do not change with the quantity produced. Like probably the plant, the machine. Even if I produce 0 units or 1000 units, I have already incurred the cost on the machine. Those are fixed costs. But raw materials, they are more of variable costs, because I purchase one raw material only if I am producing a finished product. So whichever are the costs that are more linked with the output that is produced, we are calling them as variable costs. So that variable costs vary with the output that is getting produced, whereas a fixed cost does not vary with the output that is getting produced. Whether you produce the output or don't produce it, there is a fixed cost. We have already discussed this thing as a part of our leverage chapter in corporate finance also. The fixed cost versus the variable cost, and even the break-even points and all those things. And again, here we also discuss about another thing called marginal cost. For producing one additional unit, what is the cost? See, in this case also, in general, what we see is, up to a certain extent, I get my cost will go down, go down, go down. My extra cost for producing one additional product, the cost will keep coming down. But after a certain level, again a saturation level, if I have to produce one more extra unit, the cost actually keeps going up after that. So my marginal cost curve will always be the reversal to the marginal revenue curve. Initially I will get, because of the economies of scale, I will get lesser extra cost. Right? Probably otherwise I may have to hire, let's say here this cost, up to 20 people this room can accommodate, and probably I can, for me the additional cost is very minimal. But if 21st person joins, 22nd person joins, Probably I may have to take another room and I have to take another infrastructure. I may have to go for various other extra costs after a certain point in time, after a certain quantity, right? So all those are typically increasing my marginal cost, which means the typical shape. So if these are some of the things you are comfortable with, you can very well attempt as many questions, good number of questions from economics. So the typical shape of a marginal cost curve is initially dropping and then growing. So the same thing, average cost curve is again more like a flatter. So probably average revenue is more from the top side, average cost is more from the bottom side. And so increase in the total variable cost per one additional unit of output. That is what we are calling as the marginal cost. And the same things under the average. If we see here some of the graphs, this is what we called as a marginal cost. Initially it has dropped and after that it has gone up. Average cost is more and more flatter compared to the marginal cost, and whatever we see is the marginal cost always cuts the average cost. The average cost, here we are using two words, average variable cost, average total cost. Variable is always more or less frozen, whereas the fixed cost gets allocated with the quantity produced. So that's where we see that the average fixed cost is always a downward sloping kind of a curve, because let's say 1000 is my total cost for the machine. If I produce 10 units, 100 is the cost per machine. If I produce cost per product. If I produce 20 units, only 50 bucks is the cost per product, because overall 1000 rupees is the cost that I have incurred on the machine. So as the quantity that is produced is increasing, my cost per product
Cost per product comes down.
is come down. So that's where the average fixed cost is a downward sloping curve, whereas the average variable cost, it varies with respect to the marginal cost. If the marginal cost is down, the average cost comes down. The moment the marginal cost is going up, the average cost is also going up. Same thing with the total cost. And at any point in time, the gap between the average total cost and average variable cost is nothing but the average fixed cost. Right? So these basic calculations we need to be comfortable with. And the same thing goes with your total also. Total cost of any product is nothing but total fixed cost plus total variable cost. And total fixed cost is always flat because it doesn't change. See, you have to be very careful in terms of how the shape of each of these things will be. Total fixed cost is always horizontal, whereas average fixed cost is always a downward sloping. The same thing happens with your total variable cost. Total variable cost always keeping going up, whereas the average variable cost comes down and then goes up. The same thing with your total costs also. So these kind of graphs you have to be comfortable with, right? Just as a quick important points, average fixed cost is the fixed cost per unit. It decreases with the quantity of output. Average variable cost is variable cost per unit. First decreases and then increases because the marginal cost also behaves the same way. Average total cost is total cost per unit, which is nothing but the summation of average fixed cost plus average variable cost. Even that will behave the same way like this. I mean, that will also behave more or less something like this. And average, this is one important item. This is a very important item to remember. Average variable cost and average total cost are minimum where the marginal cost curve cuts them. See, this is my marginal cost. This is my average variable cost or average total cost, whatever it is. This point is a very important point where the marginal cost curve is cutting the average cost curve. The point where the marginal cost curve is cutting the average cost curve, the average cost is the minimum. If the question is about cost per unit, where is the cost per unit minimum? Right? How much quantity I have to really produce and sell if my cost per unit has to be minimum? A simple logic is where the marginal cost curve cuts the average cost curve. Where whatever is the kind of a market, the moment where marginal cost, these are 5-6 bulleted points that give all kinds of analysis for us. Whenever a marginal cost is cutting the average cost, whether it is average variable cost or average total cost, marginal cost is cutting that average cost, it always cuts at the minimum most point, right? And the other point we have already discussed, the vertical distance between the average total cost and the average variable cost is nothing but the average fixed cost and the graph. This is a very important point. We'll be using it many times, even in various other slides also, where the cutting of the marginal cost curve with the average cost curve happens at the minimum most point of the average cost itself. Now you see here some of the important things. We are superimposed. We are looking at, this is the marginal revenues curve and this is the average revenue curve. So this is the cutting point. Now if we see here, there are 3 stages here. In the first stage, marginal revenue is growing, average revenue is also growing. But in the second stage, where the marginal revenue started falling, but still the average revenue is growing. Because marginal revenue is still greater than the average revenue, the average keeps growing up itself. And after a certain point, these two cut each other. Where they are cutting, after that you are seeing that the marginal revenue is falling and even the average revenue is also falling. So we always see 3 stages. At some place both of them are rising. After a certain point, marginal revenue will fall, but the average revenue will still keep rising as long as the marginal revenue is above the average revenue. When both of them cut each other, touch each other, intersect each other, after that the marginal revenue keeps falling more drastically compared to the average revenue. Average revenue also starts falling, but the fall is much lesser compared to the marginal revenue. The same thing happens with respect to the costs also. Even here if we see the marginal costs coming like this, the average costs, the cut at the minimum most point. Marginal cost cuts the average cost always at its minimum most point. Now from this the decision points come up. When should a firm, what is the break-even point for a firm? Right? Generally, in a regular scenario, what do we call as a break-even point? Where total revenues is equal to total costs. That is what we call as a break-even point. Right? Or probably if I am going on an average basis, average revenue is at least equal to the average cost. Average revenue is equal to the average total cost, not the variable. Average revenue is equal to the average total cost. We say that this is the break-even point. Now, this is where now when I have to deal with, and if this is greater, I am profitable. Otherwise, I am going into a loss. Now, the important aspect is, when should I shut down my business? When should I exit out of my business? Logically speaking, we may think that as long as the total revenues are less than the total cost, you should quit. But that is not the reality. In the law, see, we generally feel that if the total revenue is less than the total costs, I should quit the business. But in reality, what happens is here I have to look at short term and long term separately. In the short term, what happens is there are so many fixed costs, right? And the fixed cost could be very high in the short term. So, what we are saying is if the total revenue is less than the total variable cost only, not the total cost. Let's say I am incurring a variable fixed cost of 10,000 bucks, right? And I have and a variable cost, let's say of some 500 bucks per unit. And let's say I have produced some 200 such units. And I am selling each unit, let's say at 210 bucks, 510 bucks. I am selling each unit at 510 bucks. Now, what is my total revenue here? 510 into 200 units. So, my total revenue here is 10,200, right? No. So, 102,000 is my total revenue here. And what is my variable cost here? Total variable cost is 100,000 and total fixed cost is 10,000. So overall it is 110,000. That's my total fixed cost. This is my total revenue. So it looks like revenue is less than the cost. So probably I should shut down the business. But what this is saying is, don't shut down in the short term. Wait. As long as your total revenues are more than the total variable costs, continue. Because in future when the volume is increasing, the fixed cost will get covered off and after that you can start making your profit. So in the short run, always compare with total variable cost, don't compare with the total cost. Compare it only with the total variable cost, and only if your revenue is less than even the total variable cost, then only take a shutdown decision. As long as it is greater, total revenue is greater than the total variable cost, you can still operate because the more the volume you are able to generate, it can cover your fixed costs and it can take you to the break even. But in the long run, even after a few years also that is not getting covered, then it's better to shut down the business itself. So that's where the decisions are different between the short run versus the long run. In the short run, the shutdown point is total revenues less than total variable costs. Whereas in the long run, the total revenue less than total cost is the shutdown decision. Because you have waited, your revenues are greater than your variable costs, but whatever the number of volume you are selling, it's not covering your fixed costs at all. So in the long run, you compare with the total cost, and if your total revenues is still lesser than your total cost, you can very well take a shutdown decision. Right? So this is one difference between the shutdown decision in short run versus the long run, what comparison you have to do. Then again coming to the costs, in the long run, what we generally see is your long run average cost generally forms something like this. What do I mean by this? Up to a certain quantity, my costs are coming down. My cost per unit will come down because I have some business. My cost per unit will come down. But after that, if I have to produce some more quantities, I have to increase additional costs itself. I may have to hire more labor. I may have to hire more facilities. Lot of things will come up, which means up to this part, my business is having economies of scale. The higher I am able to produce, the lesser is the per unit cost that I am incurring. But after a certain quantity, I am incurring, because I may have to market the product more, the other costs will increase very heavily. I may be comfortably able to sell this much of quantity. But beyond that, if I have to still produce and sell, my marketing costs may go up, my advertising costs may go up, various other costs may go up, right? I may have to give more commissions to the people to sell that much. My overall costs are typically going up beyond a certain point. That is what we are calling as the diseconomies of scale. After a certain point, we are getting the diseconomies of scale, but up to a certain point, we are getting the economies of scale, and probably in this range, it's a constant returns to scale. I mean, neither the cost is falling nor increasing, it's more or less constant itself. So, whenever we are looking at it, this particular point, which where this average cost is the minimum, that is the minimum efficient scale. Means up to that quantity, if I am producing and selling, my cost per unit is much lesser. It is desirable to produce this much quantity. If at all I have to put my cost per unit to the minimum most possible, right? So the firm size that will minimize the average unit cost. This is the quantity that you have to produce. This is the quantity that you have to produce if you have to make your costs the minimum most possible. Average cost, not total cost. The average unit cost minimum most possible. And in a perfect competitive market, every firm will operate only at that quantity. Because beyond that, you cannot get your customers. See, a person, if there is no differentiation in the product, think of it like this. Assume that roadside pani puri product where there is no differentiation, right? A guy in Secunderabad doesn't come to all over to Hyderabad to eat that pani puri there. If there is a differentiation in the product and a high quality premier, probably person can travel 20 kilometers also to consume that particular product. But assuming there is no differentiation and every gully has the same product, his market cannot grow beyond that one single line, right? So he cannot produce whatever he does, he cannot grow beyond that particular. So that's where what we are saying is the perfect competitive market, every firm has to operate at the efficient, minimum efficient scale itself. It cannot go more than that or even less than that. And the next thing is, what is the profit maximization output? Couple of important points here. What is meant by what is the profit part? Total revenue minus total cost, and this has to be maximum. How much quantity I have to produce? If this has to be maximum for me, and what it says is produce up to the point where the marginal revenue is more than the marginal cost. See, we have said that the marginal revenue will come like this. Marginal cost will come like this. What we are saying is, this is the point. So you keep producing and selling up to this quantity. your profit will be maximum, because your revenue is more than the cost. Up to this point, your revenue is more than the cost, but from this point, your revenue, the extra revenue is less than the extra cost. So you are losing very badly here. So this is what we call as the profit maximizing output. In any market, whenever whatever may be the market we will be discussing of, the profit maximizing output is always where the marginal cost curve cuts the marginal revenue curve, which is this intersection point, the quantity corresponding to the intersection point between the marginal cost and the marginal revenue is the profit maximizing output. So that's where we are saying a firm should increase the production as long as the marginal cost is less than marginal revenue, not average cost, average revenues, because average cost here, if we see, this could be the average cost, average revenue, this could be the average cost. If I am looking at this difference, it is maximum here, but I don't want average profit. For any company, the total profit is what they look at. They don't look at per unit profit. It's like saying, oh, I got 50 bucks by selling one unit. What will you do with that 50 bucks? Right? As long, okay, I've got 500 bucks by selling 40 units. Per unit only I'm getting 12.5 bucks. But what matters to me is the 500 rupees profit, not this 50 per one unit. So any firm, the objective is maximize the total profit, not the average profit. If there is any firm which is looking for maximizing the average profit, then probably the quantity, the better quantity to produce is where the average cost is the minimum and average revenue is the maximum. But for any firm which wants to maximize its total profit, it has to even produce a little bit more, wherein as long as the marginal cost is less than the marginal revenue itself. So this is what we are seeing. So let's see this. The price. Okay, I am showing you the two scenarios. Okay, this is the marginal cost curve coming down and then going up. The average cost curve slightly more flatter. So what we are saying, where the marginal cost cuts the average cost, that is the minimum cost per unit. So this point, let's say if the firm is producing Q2 units, it's the minimum cost per unit. Right? If it is producing and selling Q2 units, this is the minimum cost per unit. And you look at this price, the price, let's say this company has fixed it at P1. So this is equal to marginal revenue because it's a flat pricing. Marginal revenue equal to average revenue equal to price. So you look at where the marginal cost is cutting marginal revenue. This is the point. This, so if it is producing Q1 items, that is the profit maximizing output. Why you see here? If it is producing Q1 item, or let's say if it is producing Q2 items, the Q2 items, what is the price at which it can sell? P1. Let's assume that it is selling at P1. The P1 into Q2 is the revenue which it is getting. P1. Let's go with that. I mean, let's assume that the P1 is fixed. It has fixed the price at P1. So it will get a revenue of P1 times Q2, the total revenue. And what is the total cost? The average cost is this one, P2. The average cost is P2. For Q2 quantity, if I look at the average cost curve, this is the average cost. So the P2 times Q2 is the cost that is incurred. P2 or P1 Q2 minus P2 Q2 is the total profit if it produces Q2 items. But if it produces Q1 items, look at what is the total revenue it can get. P1 Q1. P1 Q1 is the total revenue. And what is the cost that it is incurring? This one, whatever is this in the middle, because this is the average cost into the quantity. So Q1 times whatever, let me call this as P3 or something, P3. The difference between this shaded region is the profit. This is the region of maximum profit which the firm is going to make. Look at this straightforward. Two things to remember here. Profit maximizing output, at any case, if the question is about profit maximizing output, always check where the marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. Marginal revenue is, if the price is horizontal, marginal revenue is always equal to average revenue equal to price. So marginal cost curve cutting the marginal revenue curve, this is the point. So this quantity is the profit maximization kind of a quantity. You produce this much, this is the profit maximizing output. What is the profit corresponding to this? So for this quantity, the average revenue is this point, P1 is the average revenue, and average cost is this one, because this is the average cost curve. This is the average cost, which means this gap is the average profit. Multiply it with that quantity, so that shaded region is typically the total profit, and that is the maximum profit which any firm can typically make. So as long as the profit is greater than the average total cost, the price is greater than the average total cost. This is the average total cost curve. The price is greater than the average total cost curve, the firm will make profit. But if the price is lesser than the average total cost, now you see here, this is the average total cost curve. The price is set below that. P3 is the price. Now what is the profit maximizing output? MC curve cutting the MR curve. So MC, this is the one cutting MR. This is the profit maximizing output. So at Q3, find out what is the revenue. The revenue is P3 is the price. Whereas what is the average cost? This is the average cost. So average cost is more than the average revenue. The firm is making losses by that extent. So always remember, when we talk about the profit maximizing output, we are only checking out for one single thing, where marginal cost curve is cutting the marginal revenue curve. That is the location where, that is the amount of quantity that needs to be produced and sold if the profit has to be maximized. Okay, so the profit maximization wise, in the short run, okay, whenever in economics we are dealing with short term versus long term. In short term, we always discuss a lot about the fixed costs, because some costs are fixed. I have already purchased some machines, I have hired some labor. They are all fixed costs, right? Some officials, some supervisors. So they are all fixed costs. In short term, there is a lot of dependency on the fixed costs, whereas in the long run there is nothing called fixed, because even I may have to purchase one more machine, or I may have to hire some more people. So in the long run, we don't use the word called fixed costs at all. All the costs are variable only. Whereas in short term, there are some fixed costs as well as some variable costs. So that's where we took a break-even point decision or shutdown decision also. As long as the revenues are greater than the total variable costs, I can still continue the production. Whereas when we are talking about the long run, I am looking at from a total cost perspective. So that's where we typically look at in the long run. We focus on if the price is less than the average total cost, then get out of the business. Whereas in the short run, if the price is less than the average, total variable cost, only then, or if your price is less than the average variable cost, you take a shutdown decision. Whereas in the long run, if the price is less than the average total cost, then you take a shutdown decision, because there is nothing called fixed in case of long run. Everything is variable. So we even classify the various businesses or industries based on the cost. See, if we look at a typical mobile phone industry or a computers kind of industry, what we see is as the volume is increasing, the costs are coming down and down and down drastically. The probably 10 years back, when the consumption is very less, the costs of the mobile phones and all were much higher. But as the output is increasing, the costs are coming down and down. Even for the inputs, the raw materials and all those input costs are also coming down. The prices are coming down for the inputs because the demand is increasing. So especially your mobile phone industry and all, they fall into this kind of a category, electronic components kind of industry. It falls into a decreasing cost kind of an industry. Whereas in some industries, what you see is as the volume is increasing, the input cost is also increasing. Right? I may have to produce, let's say, if there is a lot of demand for gold, lot of mining has to be done for that gold. Lot of cost may be incurred for doing so much of mining on the gold. Per unit cost may not come down in that. So that is where we are talking about an increasing cost kind of an industry. So we have to really assess whether the industry is falling under the increasing cost or a decreasing cost or a constant cost kind of an industry. In a constant cost, what we see is whatever may be the volume, the raw materials cost or the labor cost does not change that drastically. It's a kind of a constant demand. Some engineering kind of industries and all, we see more or less like that. Whatever may be the volumes that we are producing, we can see that the costs are more or less frozen for a certain period of time. So again, the same things we can look at from a labor standpoint, just like the way we have done on a revenue standpoint. Marginal revenue, average revenue, total revenue. Even for a labor cost, I can look at the same. The marginal labor, total labor, average labor. Cost as well as whatever is the revenue that particular person is generating. Let's say I hire one extra person, right? Just for a company, and let's say we are talking about a BPO kind of an organization. Some X people are already there. The X plus one person is being recruited, right? There is a cost that is incurred for that person, and how much additional revenue can this guy can bring? One additional recruitment, how much additional revenue he can bring to the business. That is what we are calling it as the marginal product of labor. By hiring one extra person, how much extra revenue can be generated? How many extra calls can be taken? Or how much of extra processing can he do? and how much of extra revenue that can be generated. So when we are talking in terms of units, when we are like one extra person, assume it like a BPO kind of a call center kind of thing, how many extra calls that he can take? This is what is coming out to marginal product of labor. One extra labor, how much of extra units or extra calls can typically be handled. The next stage, how much of extra revenue can he generate? This is called as marginal revenue product of labor. So when I'm talking only in terms of units, I'll call it as marginal product. When I talk in terms of revenue, I call it as a marginal revenue product. The same thing with the average product and average revenue product. So the same thing, just like the way we are doing with respect to labor, we can talk in terms of capital also. For every $1,000 that is invested, for every extra $1,000 or extra 1 lakh I am putting in the business. Because of that, how many extra calls can be made? Like automation. I'm putting some 1 lakh, not in hiring people. I'm putting one extra 1 lakh to bring some sophisticated automation equipment. Right? I'm not changing the people, but I'm bringing some technology. So because of that, how many extra calls I can make, which is what we call as marginal product of capital. Similarly, how much extra revenue can that bring in is called as the marginal revenue product of capital. Right? So here we are always doing a trade-off between people and technology. Right? Labor versus automation. So when we are looking at this, the marginal returns, the more and more I hire people, right? It doesn't mean that the revenues will keep increasing always, right? The more and more I hire people, again, more communication has to be built between them. Some just manager level people have to be hired just to do the coordination activity among the people. So it need not increase the revenues always. More and more, see, if I hire beyond a certain point, let's say the companies, why they are saying only 10 vacancies. If they hire the 11th person, if the revenue is going to still more increase, they can hire the 11th, 12th, 20th person also. But they don't hire because they really feel that hiring the 11th person will nowhere increase their revenues at all. That is what is going with the aspect called as diminishing marginal returns. I hire some number of people, whether it is labor or even capital, also the same thing. I just that I have so many crores with me. If I say I'll invest all those crores, it cannot increase my revenues because there is a saturation point. So that what is that we are saying is the marginal revenues are always on a diminishing basis. Like don't change the capital, but hire more and more people. You increase the labor beyond certain quantity, probably a lot of gossiping will come out, probably a lot of work explanation or probably miscommunication things will come up between the various parties and the overall revenue may very well come down also. So that is where we are saying that the marginal revenue product of labor will come down after a certain level of hirings. The same thing will happen. So additional revenue, a firm can increase its profits by hiring the additional units of labor as long as the marginal revenue product is greater than the cost. Because if I am hiring one more person, I am paying some 10,000 bucks as a salary for him. Now, if that person is able to generate only 8,000 extra revenue, overall my profit is going down by 2,000. So there is no point in hiring that person. So you hire only to a certain extent where your marginal revenue product of the labor is greater than your marginal cost incurred for hiring that particular labor itself. So the same thing goes with the capital also. This is where a suggestion is given with respect to the optimal combination of the resources to be used. Always you check out this ratio, marginal product of the capital by what is the price for the capital, how much of capital has been invested, and how much of additional revenue has been generated because of that capital investment. Similarly, marginal product of labor, how much of revenue did the labor generate per how much of cost you have incurred on the labor. If you see that this is greater than this, right? If you see that this is greater than this, means for whatever the amount you are investing in capital, automation, it is generating more revenue compared to whatever you are investing in labor. Investing in capital is generating more revenue than investing in labor. Investing in automation is generating more revenue than investing in labor. So for this kind of a firm, it is advised that more investment happen in automation rather than investing in the labor. If you see this kind of a relationship, you can very well say that the firm can reduce the cost by employing more and more labor and reducing the investment in the capital. So this kind of understanding can be seen as a trade-off. Should I need to do more automation compared to labor or vice versa? It has to be done by doing this kind of an analysis. So that is what is in this chapter, right? Where the focus is more on the individual firm, understanding of the marginal revenue, the marginal cost, the relationship between the marginal revenues and average revenues, marginal costs and the average costs, and understanding a few important aspects like marginal cost cuts the average cost at its minimum value. When I have to find out the profit maximization output, I should always check out for maximum cost cutting the marginal cost cutting the marginal revenue. That is the point where the profit is maximized, and every firm has to focus more in terms of the trade-off between the capital versus the labor investment by going with this kind of marginal product of capital by the total capital involved versus marginal product of labor versus the total labor cost involved. So whichever one is higher compared to the other, the companies can reduce their overall cost by investing more in the one which is having a higher ratio compared to the lower ratio. So the next chapter primarily focuses on the looking at the overall different types of markets. We use four types like perfect competition, monopoly, oligopoly, and monopolistic competition kind of markets. In each of these markets, again, what is the profit maximizing output? How does the demand curve look like? How does the supply curve look like? That is what is the major focus of that particular chapter.